Hello, everybody, and welcome to my continuing coverage of the 2026 War of the Ring World Tournament. We are now in round 4. You can see on my channel coverage of rounds 1 and 2. In round 3, I played against Auto Beam, and I've put in the playlist for this series the video he made about our matchup. I did manage to win that one, got pretty lucky, I would say. But now we're moving on to round 4, where I'm playing Generic Pie. We have played 2 of our games so far. The first one we played, I was Free People, he was Shadow, and he has already posted that video on his channel. So I will give you a second to go over and check that out, because I'm going to spoil in a second. I lost that game as Free People. It was a pretty tough, I was really taking my lumps as Free People in that one. Just didn't work out for me. I maybe could have moved against Cruel Weather, and that might have helped me, but as it was a pretty tough slog. But at least I lost as Free People, so as Shadow, you always have a better chance of winning. Going into game 2, once again, just like in round 2, my back is up against the wall. I need to win this game, or I'm eliminated from the tournament. We decided to do no balancing. We kind of talked about it. I like balancing okay, but, you know, if you can't really decide on what exactly you want, I think no balancing is fine. That is the nature of this tournament. I did 0i, and I got this roll. This is a really great roll for Shadow turn 1, really everything you would like, and they got a much less good roll. The Palantirs can be useful with playable cards, but only one movement isn't ideal. I see something like this, and I'm immediately thinking as Shadow, okay, I could reach Old Forest Road before they can block me. And that can often be a very useful tool for Shadow to do, to get the advantage early. In the meantime, though, they're going to pass. I'm getting both nations to war. I don't mind having a lot of musters early, so when I get 3 musters like this, I'll often just use them to get Sauron to war. And they play Celeborns, an amazing card, maybe the single best starting card to have, so they gotta be happy to have that. It lets them reinforce Lorien, which is often a target, and draw 2 cards, and they get pretty good combat cards, as well as playable cards they can use. So, great early action. This is why, when you get a bunch of Palantirs, you are hoping that you have this kind of cards. Seeing that, I decide, okay, Lorien is already going to be a problem. They have a musters. They can muster the elves as well. I'm just going to go rush Old Forest Road. I'm going to take my cheap Woodland Realm, and I'm going to get my points elsewhere. I'm not going to focus on Lorien. Probably not even going to focus on Rivendell unless I can sneak attack it. They'll get the elves to war, whatever. That's my thinking. And they don't have a hybrid to block. They could spend a ring, but they don't have a scouts, and they decide not to do it, which I think is probably right in most situations. You can bluff it sometimes. James did that against me. But most of the time the value just isn't there. Now, you know, with advantageous, maybe he would survive, but it's not particularly likely. They move, and I miss them, and I move into Old Forest Road, which is always very satisfying to do. And they think about it, and they say, this is a very anti-biz move, and they give a ring to move the Fellowship. This is indeed what I was talking about in my round 2, game 3. I like to hang on to my rings as Free People, but many people don't. Many good players, Generic Pie is a good player, Auto Beam, who I just played, is a good player. Both of them don't like to use their rings for movement when they are lacking in movement early. And I think that there are many valid ways to play this game. Now, personally, I kind of like cycling Wisdom of Elrond here to get Gondor closer to war. Or maybe Power of Tom Bombadil. And then maybe you could ring move with the Muster, in fact. I feel like that might be a slightly better move as compared to just using the Muster, because then you get to draw a card. But I think that this is perfectly fine. They move, I hit them, it's a 1 reveal, so they get to ditch Gandalf. So that is the benefit of aggressively moving like this. Now against 1i, only a 1/3 chance you're going to hit Gandalf, but that's a 33% of the time that's going to happen. And now they can, anytime after turn 1, if they roll a will, they can get Saruman. So they reveal into Holland. I decide to move my Nazgul. There's two purposes to this move. The first is I want to see if I can get a reveal into Moria. If I can reveal them into or through Moria, corruption can be a serious threat this game, and things can be good. And so this one Nazgul is going to give me rerolls on them in 2 important moves. The other thing is, because I'm not doing an Elven Pincer, I'm probably going to have to hard attack Woodland Realm a few times before I can get the Witch King, so I'm going to get some leadership up there to make it more effective to do so. They hide with Strider, fair enough, and I get Saruman, and we're on to turn 2. So they've already lost Gandalf. There's potential for things to get bad for the Fellowship, because they only lost Gandalf to a 1. And I'm moving on Woodland Realm. I do an I, because I have to. I get this roll, which in this context is pretty good. I intend to play Half-Orcs. I drew this, which is an excellent draw. This will bring me to 4 leadership, and it'll give me another elite, so this army can very, very likely take out Woodland Realm without much trouble. For their part, they got Confusion and an Ents, which are both perfectly good cards. And they get a pretty good roll, but no will. So, right now, at least, they're not getting Gandalf, and I say woot, because that's nice to see for me. They move, and this is a very important move, and I miss them. A little less than 50% chance to hit. I don't know what the exact odds are to reveal, probably about a quarter. But, you know, the gamble with the Nazgul is that I'm going to hit them either on this move or the Dirmal Dale move. And I didn't hit them on this move, which is too bad. I attack Woodland. You know, I could play Flocks of Crebain here. Or Crebine? It might be Crebine. Flocks of Crebain here. But, you know, how often is that actually useful? It's pretty likely I'm going to get a 5 on 3 dice anyway. So I'd rather just use it as a combat effect. Put Woodland under siege. They move again. And I totally miss them. And, you know, as it turns out, even if I'd played Flocks of Crebain and used it, I would have missed them. So it just goes to show that that card is garbage, and you should probably not play it in base ever. Let's see. I play Half-Orcs. So now I have a really nice stack in Woodland Realm that really makes up for the Witch King coming a bit late. I attack Woodland. They play Confusion. I think that's a good play in this situation. Although I might play Wisdom of Elrond over it. I play Relentless. You know, Relentless can be a good card, it cannot. Maybe it's best. I don't know. The thing is, if I can get this in 1 attack, that would be fantastic, and I'm figuring that Relentless really increases my odds of getting it in 1 attack. I decide to take 1 hit. Maybe it's better to take 2 here. I don't know. But this is what I go for, and of course, because I only take 1 hit, I roll 2 4s. So, you know, Java likes to have fun with you, and I just get 1 hit, which is a little below average, but not terrible. And then they get 1 back, and they get... Oh, and I get 2 Confusion on myself, so they actually get 3 back. So that was a pretty horrible roll. If I had Relentless, I would have gotten it. So that's kind of interesting to note. But I have to downgrade and go down to this, because otherwise I am not at a full 5 dice. So that attack really did not go well. Now it's a 5 versus 2, which is not fantastic. Should still take it unless they get Thranduils. I attack Woodland, and I play They're Terrible to another Confusion. Fortunately, I'm less confused this time. Unfortunately, I only get 1 hit, so they are continuing to hang on, and they get a hit back. So, you know, I had a 5-2. I don't know what the exact odds of this outcome are, but this has not gone very well for me. I've been pretty disappointed. They get ready. I get the Witch King. They get Gondor ready, and I just ring attack. Because if they get Thranduil, this could potentially eat up like 5 or 6 more dice because I have to move all of these guys in to reinforce or pray for hill trolls or something. Olokai. So Thranduil would be a disaster. So I just want to take him down immediately. I'm going to use my ring. I could play ring race, but I don't really want to move my Nazgul right now. I want to save this for another turn. I attack woodlands, and I get 0 hits. So now I really feel like I've been a bit low on hits. This is not going to my advantage. And they got through Moria safely, so really a great turn for Fruit People, except they didn't get Gandalf. And that is the good news. I have 9 dice to their 4, so right now I still have a pretty clear advantage. I get 1 eye, and they get a will. So they get Gandalf. They are low on movement, so that is pretty nice. They're obviously going to get Gandalf. They might ring move. I just want to finish off Woodland Realm. So they think about it. They get Gandalf. I'm relieved they don't have Thranduil. And I just attack Woodland Realm. I could play Dreadful Spells here. Get 4 dice. I'm likely to get hit M5s. But I feel like attacking with Desperate makes it a sure thing. And I might want to play Dreadful Spells with a Palantir later. Whereas this is an attack die I could use for something. And I get a hit, and they get a hit, and we're on. And I do take this hit eventually. It just takes a little bit of time because the game is laggy. They're passing. I'm getting the Southlands and Easterlings. You'll notice I got a bunch of musters. Maybe this is an argument to not use that hybrid to get Sauron to war turn 1, but then I wouldn't have gotten into Old Forest Road, and this might have even been a harder siege, so I think that was right. I'm just going to have to use these musters, and I get the Southlands and Easterlings to war, so good job, guys. They get Gondor to war, and I'm moving out. So they have gotten Gondor fully to war before Sauron has even gotten onto their doorstep, which is good for them. They're going to be able to muster up in Minas Tirith. But I'm thinking at this point, okay, they're going to muster in Minas Tirith once. I guess they can do it again. I'm just going to come in with all of my army units, crash into Minas Tirith, and it doesn't really matter that they've mustered ahead of time. I have so many hit points, I'm going to be able to take them out eventually. So that's why I go for Minas Tirith. Minas Tirith is going to be part of my 10 points. I have these guys here. I can maybe bring in these guys. And then Dol Amroth will muster up, and it will be tough, and that's annoying, but I'll just give up on Dol Amroth. I play Ring Race now, and I move on Osgiliath. I do use a character die in this, just because I want to get the drop on Minas Tirith. And because now I have a Nazgul in the Fellowship. So, Corruption has not gone very well for me so far, but you never know. It's pretty early. They, of course, get an Elite in Minas Tirith. I besiege Minas Tirith. They get an Elite in Dol Amroth. I think all of this is right from Free People. And I get an Elite in South Rune. So you have this extra muster. The question is what you do with it. I'm thinking, okay, I've gotten a bunch of musters early. Everything is already ready, so I'm going to roll more musters over the coming turns and not have obvious things like getting the Witch King or the Southlands to war to do with them. So I need a place to productively use my musters, and there's really 2 places that this is very good. It would be with the Easterlings or with Saruman. And I'm choosing to go Easterlings. This is obviously, this attack in Woodland Realm didn't go very well, so I'm not going to get many reinforcements. If I can just, over the next few turns, dump 2 to 3 musters into here, get a bunch of elites, and go attack Erebor, then that's likely just 2 points that is very difficult for them to counter me in. Because they have no companions up there, the dwarves are way away from war, so I think this is a pretty good plan, and then I have 2 points from Woodland, 2 points from Minas Tirith, 2 points from Erebor, get some cities, I just need 1 more stronghold. I get a New Powers Rising, an excellent card. And my opponent gets We Prove the Swifter and the Last Battle. Worth stopping to think what you would discard here. You have a Daylight. You have 2 companion separating cards, and We Prove the Swifter and Gwahir. You have Kindred of Glorfindel, which is a card you can cycle with. It's also a decent combat card. Power of Tom Bombadil is a decent combat card. File is a great corruption card, and an Ent. So what would you get rid of? I think there's a couple options. I think you could get rid of one of these separating cards, or you could get rid of the Ents. I think you want your combat cards. You're probably going to be attacked in Minas Tirith, and these advantages could be helpful. I think File is just really good. The thing with the Ent is that given the elves are at war, and you have Kindred now, Rivendell is probably going to be tough for me to attack. Lorien is going to be tough for me to attack. Dol Amroth is going to be tough for me to attack because you can muster up. So, thinking ahead, you can probably see I'm going to attack Rohan at some point to get points, either from 4 cities or for Helm's Deep itself. So, I think having an Ent is pretty valuable here. It could really help out. In the end, they discard Gwahir. I think that this is the right choice, given what you see here. I'm interested in opinions. We actually talked about this choice after the game. But I think given you have already a card to separate companions, you probably aren't going to want to separate more than 2 companions or so with 1 card anyway. It's unlikely you're going to do it twice. I guess it's good to move Gandalf, maybe to Minas Tirith. I don't know. That's an interesting call. I think they made the right call here, though. They say the Fellowship's okay, and I decide to do 0 eyes. It is possible they just roll 5 movement, and I roll 0 eyes, and it's a disaster. But Corruption has already not gone that well for me, and I just need to get a move on. They have so many companions. I want to focus on my military over Corruption. And I think this is the right call. But as it happens, I roll 0 eyes. So it is an extremely dangerous situation now. If they roll a bunch of movement, I could be in a lot of trouble. But they roll no movement. So this is a fantastic roll for me. Very lucky. I have plenty to do. And they're going to have to give me a ring to even move once. They play We Prove the Swifter, and they send Gimli and Merry into Minas Tirith. I think this is a fantastic move. If these guys can probably hold Minas Tirith for a while. You might eventually draw guards, which would help. But even without it, I mean, you have plenty of combat cards you can play. The Witch King is certainly going to need reinforcements. I mean, this just really extends your ability to fight in Minas Tirith and makes it more likely it's going to eat up a bunch of dice. It also looks like you're not going to need all that corruption in the Fellowship. You still have quite a bit. So I think this is nice. The only thing is I would have sent Boromir over Gimli, just because of House of the Stewards. But it's a pretty minor move, all things considered. So, nice move. Let's look at the game from my perspective. I am still thinking about my plan. I want to eventually take Minas Tirith. I don't have a lot of combat cards, but I do have a Deadly Strife and a Dreadful Spells. So I'm thinking I'm going to Dreadful Spells Minas Tirith, especially with these companions. I want to reduce their HP safely as much as possible. Then I'm going to Deadly Strife, and then I'm going to see about bringing reinforcements, or if I get really lucky and I can just take it down. I also have 1, 2, 3, 4 musters rolled, which is a lot, more than I need, certainly. So I'm going to get 2 more elites over in South Rune, and I'm probably going to start mustering up Isengard, and my plan, especially with new power, starts to come into focus. I'm going to go for Erebor, and I'm going to go for Rohan and Pelargir and Dale, and those will be my 10 points. So, you know, the musters, it's an interesting note about these musters. Musters are generally not a great die to get a Shadow, but I think in the early and mid-game they can be very valuable to Shadow. Because if you get an extra elite, that is an extra press you can make. So later, it basically converts into an extra attack die. It's not quite as good or flexible as an attack die, but it still has a lot of value. So I played my Dreadful Spells. I want to weaken Minas Tirith. If I get particularly lucky on Dreadful Spells and Deadly Strife, I might not need to reinforce it. I get 1 hit, which is about expected, 1.3. They downgrade an elite. Then I attack Minas Tirith, and I play my Deadly Strife. So if I am able to inflict 4 or 5 hits, I could probably press down. I would probably be willing to spend the Great Host. In a situation like, let's say I have 5 regulars versus their 2, I would probably spend the Great Host in that situation. But obviously, it depends on how this round of combat goes. For them, they see a combat card. They decide to play Advantageous. This is just a bit, it's kind of a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation. Because if a lot of the time, Shadow will play weaker combat cards first and then follow up with the Deadly Strife. In this instance, this was just the only card I had in hand, so I was happy to just play my Deadly. And Advantageous is not going to be effective as a Daylight. However, it still helps somewhat. And we roll, and I only get 3 hits, in part because of the Advantageous. It takes away a hit here. And they get 5 hits back. So, good start to the combat for them. 3 hits is still not nothing. But if I had gotten like 4 or 5, then this could be over before it even starts, and it would be devastating. As it is, Minas Tirith holds on, and I'm going to need reinforcements. And I draw into Shadow's Gather, which is a pretty good card for me to get in the situation. I'm very happy to send in reinforcements and see if I can do something with that. I start mustering in Southroom. And my thinking here, I continue to do it, my thinking here is I want to move these guys to Daggerlad so they can be Shadow Gathered into Minas Tirith. So I'm going to move Southroon to Eastrune at the same time, and I want to get all of my elites mustered before I do that. Makes sense. Now, seeing something like this, maybe Free People could anticipate Shadows Gather and block. But they should be careful about something like that. Because if they did choose to block, fine. But I might attack Rohan. I actually have a New Powers Rising, so I could muster in Helm's Deep normally. New Powers, muster in Orthanc normally. New Powers Rising, attack. And if they don't use their hybrids correctly, then Helm's Deep could be relatively cheap for me. So it is a little dangerous to try and block a hypothetical Shadows Gather. As it happens, they decide to just play Kindred of Glorfindel. Yeah, I mean, you could play File here. I might be tempted to play File just to get it out of your hand, because sometimes it is difficult to play those character cards. And they get a regular, I guess, preserving the Elven Force Pool, getting ready to save it for the longer haul. And they draw into Guards of the Citadel, which is really fantastic. Maybe that's part of their thinking in what they were doing here. If I can draw into Guards in the Citadel, Minas Tirith is going to go even worse for Shadow. And yes, Guards of the Citadel came in, and that's really bad for me. I get up some Isengard Elites, and they play Guards of the Citadel, and now Minas Tirith is going to be even tougher. I play Shadows Gather, so I have a big stack here. It is entirely possible I'm still able to take out Minas Tirith, given that this is 11 hit points to their 5. They do have a ton of companions, though, so it's going to be tricky, and I don't really have any good combat cards to play. They get ready in Helm's Deep, so they are aware of the problem. I'm kind of slow playing Orthanc build-up a little bit, because I don't want to show that I have a New Powers Rising, or maybe I want to save it for a Palantir next round. So I just continue to get this. I'm now at a 2-4. When I play New Powers Rising, I'll have 6 elites, which is a pretty nice stack. And they ring move, which I think is reasonable. It's a free move. It lets them get off the Nazgul next turn. They need to keep making progress. I attack Minas Tirith. I have no card to play. I would love it if I could, but I don't really want to play Foul Stench. I want to save my Black Captains. I'm really just hoping to get 1 to 2 hits, and for their amount of hits to not be that big. But they play Daylight, and I completely miss. Um, and they get 2 hits. So 2 hits isn't that bad from them. Me missing kind of sucks. I was really hoping for at least one, make some progress. But Minister continues to hold. Let's see, I get Orcs Multiplying again and Shelob. Perfectly fine. Not exactly a great card, but it's okay. And they get Elven Rope and Imrahil. They declare and Parth Celebrant. I allocate an eye, and I roll no more, and they roll plenty of movement. So now they're going to sprint. They had a very below average movement last turn, but this turn they can make up for that. So they move, and they're missed. I attack Minas Tirith. I just cycle my Onslaught. I have no intention to play it. I don't have enough hit points. They play Shield Wall, but I, like the genius Shadow player I am, I only get 1 hit, so Shield Wall does nothing. They get 3 back, which is pretty painful. And now I have 6 HP to their 4, and I am not going to be able to take Minas Tirith without reinforcements. So that really blows. Minas Tirith has been taking the time, and this is just what the companions can do. I have been very low on 6s. I'm -7, in fact. But even accounting for that, the companions have done a lot of work to hurt me. There's a lot of cards that they could still play. So this is eating up a lot of time. I get Shadows Moving, which is a great card. They move again and are missed again. And I get... This is kind of an interesting muster. I get a regular in Orthanc and a regular in North Rune. I want to move this North Rune stack into the East Rune stack, consolidate into a massive stack, and I want Orthanc to be a little tougher, but I'm going to play New Powers Rising, so I don't want to eat up all the force pool with less useful musters in North and South Dunland. So I'm just doing like a regular split muster. They draw a strategy card. That's interesting. There's something I've noticed in a lot of Generic Pie's videos is that they spend a lot of time drawing for good cards. I don't do this a lot because I like to just try and get maximum value out of the dice I have when I have them. So in this turn, I would just want to play my blue tiles, and last turn I would just want to play my blue tiles because I don't know if I'm going to get a chance to play them again in future turns. But because they chose to cycle last turn, they drew into Guards of the Citadel. Now, how likely was that? It was 1 in 17 at the time that it would happen, but it did happen. So, playing for those kind of outs, this is just a different way of playing the game, and it is really paying off for them here too because Red Arrow is a really good card to draw in this situation. I play New Powers Rising, so now I have a big Orthanc stack. They move the Fellowship, and they're missed for a 3rd time, so 3 safe moves this turn. Maybe I could have hunted them more. I don't know, 1 more hit, like if I had a Nazgul on them or had another eye or something, if I got 1 more hit this turn, would it really make that big of a difference? I don't really think so. So, I needed my hits earlier. I got 1 hit early on, and then I haven't hit them since. So the hunt is just not happening this game. And there are games like that. I play Shadows Moving. It's a very nice card to play in this situation. I prepare a nice stack in North Dunland, so this can eventually do something. I prepare in East Rune. I prepare in Near Harad to reinforce Minas Tirith. And I move out into Fords of Isa. So that's a really satisfying Shadows Moving. And now I'm going to go... I leave 4 behind, just to guard against Ents. Maybe a little too much. Maybe I could get away with 3. But I just don't want to lose Saruman at this point. And they pass, and I move like this, and I move into Westamnet and Osgiliath, and now my plan is I'm going to subdue Rohan and then ring attack Helm's Deep. Yes, they will get to muster an elite in Helm's Deep, but it's not the end of the world. I can just subdue it after that. Or I could just sit on it, subdue Eredor and Minas Tirith, and go for 4 cities pretty safely. But they have Red Arrow. So, those drawing strategy cards, in this instance, it has given them really critical strategy cards that have stymied my attack. And that is an argument for doing that sort of thing, for just drawing and hoping you get something good, because they also could have drawn into something like Dine or Brand or maybe Kierden, and all of those would have been very useful. But because they do that, I am not able to subdue Rohan easily. I could attack Edoras, but then Fold is still open, and Helm's Deep is completely free, so this whole plan to subdue Rohan is done. I attack Erebor, and I just muster in Moria. There's not really a clear, obvious other place to muster, and this seems like a pretty good spot. These two together can collectively go do something. It might be taking Rivendell, it might be going for Shire. Whatever it is, it could be really relevant to my late game plans. We're continuing on. They get Riders of Theoden, so even more good Rohan cards. They declare out in No Man Lands. What did I get? I get Return of the King and Foul Stench. Both of these cards pretty good combat cards to deal with companions, so not too bad. I do One Eye. They get a ton of movement, and I feel pretty behind. So they start off by moving, and they're safe. And there's something really interesting that happened here, because they have had such a good time in the hunt, they could actually afford to separate more companions, and they would be totally fine. And after the game, we talk about how they would have liked to have some companions in Helm's Deep. And they bring up separating Gwahir early in the game. And I said at the time, I think that was the right call. I think I would have done it too. I think that they're pretty happy to have an Ent right now. But I think that there was something they could have done this turn, because they chose to declare out from Parth Celebrant. And because they declared out from Parth Celebrant, they can no longer reach Helm's Deep with companions. If instead they had stayed in Parth Celebrant, just at 3 movement, they could easily separate whoever they wanted into Helm's Deep. And they could even move first just to see if it's going to be nasty and then do that. And you know, they wouldn't have been seriously hurt by shadow cards, because they're going to be at 1 movement they're going to have to get to 2 movement regardless to get into Mordor. So it doesn't really matter. So yeah, I think that is something that they could have done. I think it was the right call to discard what they did, but maybe they could have stayed in Parth Celebrant and separated some guys directly into Helm's Deep. Because if you look at the siege, this is a pretty close siege. And a few companions could probably make the difference. I get ready, and I move into Minas Tirith, which is obviously correct, and then I move into Moria, and I think this is a mistake. I think it should be foreseeable from the position I'm currently in that I'm not going to go after Lorien. If I step into Dimral Dale, they're going to be able to muster an elite in Lorien, and it's going to be very tricky to end up with a set of dice that doesn't allow them to do that. And I don't want to take on a 1/4/1. That's just, I don't have the time. They're moving too fast for me to take down Lorien in addition to all the other stuff I'm doing. What I might do with this army is go to Rivendell if I need another stronghold, or go to Shire. And Rivendell is the same distance from Moria as North Dunland, but the Shire is closer to North Dunland than Moria. So I think moving this way from North Dunland to Moria was a mistake. I should have moved from Moria to North Dunland. If I was a little concerned about Free People military victory, maybe I can leave a guy behind. But this would just give me a little more flexibility in endgame, which could be useful, depending on how things go. They move the Fellowship, and they're in and revealed, and it's an eye, so they're at 0 corruption. They're totally fine. They definitely could have afforded to separate companions, so that is interesting how that all works out. I attack Minas Tirith. They play a Daylight, and I get to cancel it very nicely. And this is where I say you're kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't. Because this round, I did play a card like Swarm of Bats in round one. How are you supposed to know, as free people, that Shadow had their only good strategy card being a Deadly Strife versus Swarm of Bats? I don't think you can. So, you know, I think that, the card play is kind of interesting and kind of difficult to predict. I cancel their daylight and I get one hit. They get one hit back. And I'm just going to press. I have a huge stack, so I'm going to do my best. They play Mighty Attack. I get one hit. They get two back. I press again. We both get a hit. I press one more time, and I get my last hit. So it took 4 rounds. I got one hit per round. Very slow. I'm minus 10 on sixes, which I'm starting to joke about. This has just been... the orcs have taken some time to get their shit together. But in the end, despite the companions, despite Guards of the Citadel coming in at a bad time, the mortar armies were enough. I had to throw about 30 HP at the problem, and it took a lot of dice. But Minas Tirith did fall. We'll see if that delay is enough to save free people. We have to reconnect at this point, and I play Black Captain Commands. So now I've finished off Minas Tirith. I'm gonna run over and I'm going to go crush Erebor. And I have a We Come to Kill, which is an incredibly good card to have drawn into for this situation. It's going to give me 4 post attacks against this stronghold. And I move my Nazgul down to Rohan, just to have him ready to go in the Siege of Helm's Deep. Because if you're counting, right, I have 2 from Minas Tirith, 4 from Woodland Realm, I'm going to get to 6 from Erebor, then it's Dale, Polar Gear, Helm's Deep. I attack Erebor, I play my We Come to Kill, get only 1 hit on the combat roll, and they get 2 back, but then in the post I get 2. So that was a pretty good round for me. I dealt 3 hits total, and now I'm just going to press down Erebor. It actually takes me a long time, a lot of presses, and yeah, we're talking about how I'm minus 12 on sixes, but that is the benefit of all of these musters. So, just consider that sometimes when you roll a bunch of musters, they can be translated into a better late game attack. And in this case, all those musters in the east allowed me to just press down Erebor despite only having 1 combat card. They hide the Fellowship, which I think is right. If I have a card to reveal them, I have a card to reveal them. They need to get their button gear. I attack Dale now. I'm just cycling my character card. I'm going to see if I can't finish them off, and I want to do this before I move my Nazgul. So I cycle, and I get a 6, and they actually don't get anything because I play Foul Stench, canceling their leader reroll, so good job, Foul Stench. And now I'm at 7 points. These were all the easy points. Now I'm going to have to go for Helm's Deep and 1 more city in Pelargir. And I draw into Grond, which is a great draw in this situation. They manually muster Rohan. I suspect their thinking here is they don't want to give me the chance to get all my ducks in a row, move everybody out maybe to forwards, or move my leadership first. They just want me to have to attack immediately, and then they can start mustering up an Edoras. Makes sense to me. So I do attack immediately. I put Helm's Deep under siege. And they muster an elite in Pelargir. So next turn, Helm's Deep is going to go how it's going to go. Hopefully for free people, it goes well. Hopefully for me, it goes horribly for them. But after Helm's Deep, if Helm's Deep holds, free people is very, very likely to just win. It's going to be tricky to reinforce with a lot very quickly. But if Helm's Deep doesn't hold, they need to hold both Edoras and Pelargir. That's hard to do, but depending on the number of attacks I get next turn, it is possible. So they are preparing, they're mustering up in Pelargir. I attack Helm's Deep, and I play my Devilry. I just want to get an attack in now before they potentially do something like send a companion in or whatever it is they're going to do. I just want to attack. I know they don't have any strategy cards. They might have an Ent. In fact, they do. But let's just move on. And I have a nice Devilry of Orthanc to play. I get 3 hits, so pretty lucky. Definitely my best combat round of the game. And they get 3 back. A little below average for Ent's Rage. Might be like 3.5 or 4. So now I stop. I'm not in a huge hurry. There's no way to reinforce Helm's Deep Under Siege without a companion in it. And next round, I'm feeling very confident. I'm going to move my leadership over to here. I'm going to put the Witch King on Helm's Deep. I'm going to Grand it, and then I'm going to go take Pelargir. And generally speaking, a Shadow, if you can find a way to win the turn that Free People enters Mordor, you kind of have control of the game and can win this thing without them having much chance of winning back. Obviously, they want to stop me from doing that. So they get a Scouts. They don't have many good combat cards. I get another Devilry, which is pretty nice, and a Foul Stench, which is actually okay. They declare, and I do 1 eye, and then get this roll. So this is a catastrophically bad roll. I get 1, 2, 3, 4 Palantirs. I can get the Mouth, but then I only have 2 attacks. Now I do have Grand, so if we count this out, I can move my Nazgul. I could just attack Helm's Deep directly, but I'm probably going to want to move leadership anyway. So I'm going to move my dice, Grand Helm's Deep. That should take it. It's not a guarantee, but, 3 hit points against my 8. With the leadership advantage, with Grand, it feels very, very likely. So move leadership, Grand. I have 1 attack to get to Osgiliath, but I do not have a second attack to take Pelargir. So I can't win this turn unless they give me something or I draw into Shadow's Gather. It would be Shadow Lengthens, I believe, the 2/3 movement ones, the 2/2 movement ones. If I get Shadow Lengthens, I could move this and this into Osgiliath and then attack Pelargir, and that would be a way of winning. But that's obviously a little far-fetched. So let's see how this plays out. And they get only 1 movement. So we both got an extremely bad roll. Theirs is worse than mine, which I acknowledge here. But now, they get a lot of musters to muster up in Pelargir and Edoras and fight for these places. But it's highly unlikely they're going to be able to dunk the ring next turn. They only have 1 movement this turn, and they only have 1 Elven Ring. They get a Rohan Elite. I play Shelob. They didn't move. I'm not sure why they didn't move first action. I guess the thinking is if you muster in Edoras, you can maybe move out to Westamnet and start to threaten Helm's Deep sooner. That sort of tempo might be important depending on how the Helm's Deep siege goes. Especially if I don't have something like Grand and I just attack now. Goes poorly, you move into Westamnet, I'm forced to throw everything at it. So yeah, I guess I can see the logic of that, but it does let me throw in a red tile. Not that they're particularly likely to hit it with how big this hunt pool is. They move the Fellowship. They get a 0 reveal, which is a pretty good tile for me to draw, in fact, because I just need anything to slow them down. I get the Mouth, because I want to get the Mouth before I move my leadership. I'm drawing a strategy card. As noted previously, Shadow Lengthens couldn't let me win the game this turn. Corsairs might be able to, if I'm feeling really frisky in Umbar. Maybe Oleg High. Like if you Oleg High Osgiliath and then move your leadership in, they have a chance. That's kind of far-fetched. But I don't get it. And then I move my leadership, and I move a significant amount to Minas Tirith. And I move the Witch King and a guy to Helm's Deep. So Minas Tirith, so I'm going to Gron Helm's Deep. And then I'm going to move into Osgiliath, and I'll be one move away. They hide. I play Grons, and I start with Devilry, and this is a big roll. If I can just get 1 to 2 hits, which is about what is expected, I should be totally fine to win the siege. I have a Desperate to follow up with. But I get 0 hits on the combat roll and 0 hits on the reroll. So I just completely whiff, and they get 3 hits back. So it goes literally as badly as it possibly could. But the siege goes on. We have Grand. It's extremely scary. I take hits incorrectly because I actually cannot downgrade all these guys. So instead, I have to take my hits like this so that I have less than 5 combat dice for round 2. And I am lucky enough to draw into Deadly Strife, and I play it, and I get enough. So Deadly Strife is really clutch in this situation. Desperate maybe could have done it for me too, who knows? But this was big. They get 2 hits back, but it doesn't really matter because Helm's Deep has fallen. So they are now done in Helm's Deep. I have gotten to 9 points, but I do not have a way to get to 10 this turn. So they prepare their armies, and I move out into Osgiliath, and this is incredibly critical, because if I did not have a way to threaten 10 points this turn, they would be able to ring move right now. They'd get 1 step closer, and it would let them use all of their dice next turn to just focus on moving 3 times. Now, they still need to roll 3 movement, so, that's not guaranteed, but with Strider as the guide to hide with any dice, they really want to use as many of their dice towards this as possible, but they can't. They can't give me a ring, because I will attack Pelargir and win the game. So, good job, Mouth. Good job, guys in Osgiliath. You prevent them from using an Elven Ring. They have to just ready their armies. And now, next turn, they have to make 1, 2, 3, 4 moves. Which is tricky, right? First of all, they need to roll 3 movement dice, which is not impossible. Slightly below average, but it's certainly doable. But then they also need to dodge. They can only get revealed once, and revealed or stopped once. So it's going to be extremely difficult for them to do it. And I just draw a strategy card. So I'm still looking for something useful. There's nothing in the character deck that helps me at this point. Ring Wraiths has been used, Black Captains has been used, Grand has been used. Everything that could possibly help me is in the strategy deck. We're on to next turn. I draw into Corsairs, which is pretty funny because they just abandoned Dol Amroth. So if they don't have Círdan's, which, as it happens, they actually don't, I could potentially win by attacking Dol Amroth. We're on to next turn. I allocate an eye because I have to, and I get a much, much better roll. This is a great roll. If you count it up, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 attacks with potentially a ring. And they get this roll, and they needed at least 3 rolled movement, and they only rolled 2. So we look at it for a bit, and it's a bit anticlimactic, but basically it is obvious that Free People has lost the game. Because I joke, if they have I Will Go Alone, they could separate every companion and then play theirs another way. But they don't have that. Because, they just don't have enough movement. They can move, ring move, but they cannot get over the line. They think about what to do. They muster an elite in Edoras, and the reason it is over is now clear. Because I move Moria into North Dunland. Wouldn't it be nice if they were already there, Biz? And then I move Orthanc into Fords of Isen. So these guys are just going to walk into Shire. Power of Tom Bombadil has already been played. They could try and fight me for it with these guys, but they don't even have that much. So, I can move in Nazgul it's extremely, extremely unlikely that they're going to be able to stop me. And in the meantime, I'm moving these guys to Fords of Eisen because there is a theoretical chance they can move to Westamnet and attack and retake Helm's Deep. So I'm just going to cut off that chance by bringing in even more to Helm's Deep. So they just decide, okay, I'm just going to run and see how far I get. I get another elite because why not? I'm getting nice and ready, reinforcing my strongholds. And I just attack Shire, and they scouts away so that he lives. And that is 10 points. So a bit of an unclimactic ending to a very interesting game. I think this game is a pretty good example of how the statistics don't always tell the full story. I was very up on musters and very low on sixes. I was minus 12 on sixes. But because of all those musters, I was able to use them pretty effectively to negate my bad combat dice to some extent. I also just didn't roll a lot of eyes. So I was able to maximally focus on the military attack. And they were pretty fast. I mean, they were set up for a turn 9 dunk, which is about average. And they had some good tricks. But I was able to get to 10. I think, yeah, we talk after the game about that Rohan separation. And I think that looking at the log, I think it was correct to discard the card that they did, but they might have been able to stay in Parth Celebrant and just use a character die to move directly into Helm's Deep. And given how close that siege in Helm's Deep was, there is a strong chance that that they would be able to hold, or at least make it difficult for me if they had 2 companions in there. Maybe I would have gone 4 cities and I would have won this turn anyway. I don't know. That feels like it would have been pretty tricky. But regardless, it was a pretty interesting game. Shadow is so tough. I feel like when both sides are unlucky, that kind of means that Shadow is lucky because they were very low on movement in large stretches of the game. They were -4, and they really felt it. So you really need things to go against Shadow actively for free people to have a good shot, unless things get really crazy. And this game, it was a pretty standard game. I'm really excited for Game 3. We're gonna play that pretty soon, and whoever wins that will advance to round 5. So I'm gonna go at it again with muster points. Very exciting stuff. You can look out for that video. I hope you enjoyed this one, and that you have a good day. Till then, see you next time.